First one we're going to begin with here today is what I call a stillborn emerger. To begin with, what we're going to be using is a standard dry fly hook with a ring eye. Get it in our vise here. And then we're going to attach our thread. For most flies, we get our thread on here and we work from the tail forward. On this particular fly, however, we're going to do something a little bit different, and we're going to work from the hook of the eye back. Next thing we're going to do is tie in some CDC. The CDC is what we're going to use for our wing, or emerging wing would be a better description. So what I'm going to do is select two CDC feathers, and this is a natural dun. What I'm going to do is just even up the tips. Once we have our tips evened up, we're going to come up to the hook, and you just take a loose wrap and another one, and then you pull your CDC through till you just get to the tip, and then you cinch down on it and add a few more wraps to tie it down, just like so. The next thing we're going to do is tie in our body material. For the body material, what we're going to use is D-rib. The reason I like to use D-rib is because it presents great segmentation, plus it has some translucency to it. So we'll make sure that the D side is facing towards me, and we'll just tie that right down in the thorax area and wrap back about a quarter way back from the hook eye. And then we'll bring our thread back forward, and we'll just move that body material out of the way for the moment. Next, what we're going to do is tie in our legs or our hackle. For our hackle, what we're going to be using is Whiting's hen neck. The reason we like to use the soft hackles, it just allows the fly to ride more flush on the surface, plus it adds just a little bit of movement to the fly as it floats down the river. This one's already been prepared, so we're ready to tie it in. So we'll come up here and tie it in right behind the CDC. And we'll make sure it's tied in there real good. And then we're ready to dub our thorax. For the thorax, what we're going to be using is micro dry fly dubbing. Since we're using olive materials on this particular fly, it's going to be made for a blue-winged olive. The nice thing about the microfly dubbing is it has been specifically made to go with the blue-winged olive. So we'll just get a little bit of dubbing on here. And we're going to wrap our thorax. And just wrap back about a third to a quarter back from the hook eye. Next, what we're going to do is wrap our hackle from the hook eye back towards the bend of the hook. So we're just going to take our hackle, and you're not going to need a whole lot of wraps here. 2 or 3 would be more than enough. Because remember, we don't want this fly to be standing on top of the water, rather flush with it. Now we're at the back of the thorax. We'll take several turns and tie it off. Come in here and cut off our excess. Next thing we're going to do, just so to make sure we have a nice smooth underbody, is tie in our shuck material. For our trailing shuck, what I'm going to be using is some Zelon. And for just about any of the Betas flies, what I like to use is a brown Zelon. So we'll kind of spread it out a little bit, and we'll just cut a hunk of it out of here so we have several fibers. And you just kind of twist it so it stays together a lot better and makes it easier to work with. So once we have it twisted together, I'm going to cut it off so it's nice and even. And then we're going to tie it in right at the back of the thorax. So we tie that down. Move our body material out of the way for a minute. And just wrap back to the bend of the hook. What you can do just to make things easier is before you tie in the body material, you can also tie in the shuck material first. That way you don't have to worry about winding your thread around the body material and basically just getting in your way, creating more headaches than you need. So now we have our trailing shuck in there. Now we're ready to wrap our body material. So what we're going to do is wrap from the thorax area backwards, creating our body. Just like so, just one wrap right and back of the other. We're going to do this until we get to the bend of the hook. We're just about there, so we'll tie this off. Take several turns of thread and cut off our body material. The next thing we're ready to do is pull our wings over the top. But before we do that, what I like to do is just come in and kind of smash down the soft hackle, just pinch it, and what that does is displaces the fibers to each side, so there's none on the top and very few, if any, on the bottom. Now we're going to take our CDC and fold it over the back like a wing case, and you want to pull it tight like that, and just watch my fingernail there on my thumb, and you kind of just push forward a little bit. And what happens as you do that, the CDC envelopes out, and you can see the wing a lot better from the underside, which is real important because that's what the fish is going to see. And once you do that, you just tie it down. Cut off our CDC. And since an emerger is in a transitional stage, you're going to have what is called the trailing shuck, which is actually an extension of the old body that the fly just crawled out of. So we're going to have some gills on here, and for that, what we're going to use is marabou. Since we're talking about small flies usually, 18 and smaller, we'll just come in here and just snip out roughly 6 fibers. You just kind of stroke your fingers through the marabou, and you want to see where the length of the marabou fibers are. And that's about, I want this little bit longer stuff down here on this particular fly. So I'll just cut off the tips. Now we're going to tie this in right at the bend of the hook where we tied off our wing. And then we're going to take the marabou, twist it together so it's like a rope. And what that does for the marabou, it makes the fiber stand straight out from its stem. And we'll just take a couple wraps here. What it does is gives us the gills and adds a little movement. Plus it also just covers up where we tied off the body material and the wing. So we tie this down with a couple turns of thread. Cut off the excess. And we're ready to finish this fly off. Instead of up at the hook eye, we're going to do it right where we tied that marabou off. Take about 4 turns. And we're going to take our thread off. Now we can come in and trim the length of our shuck, which is usually about half the length of the hook shank, just like so. And then you can turn the vise just a little bit with a rotary vise like this HMH, just to make sure you don't have any scragglers sticking out the bottom. And if you do, you can come in there and cut a little bit of them out if you want. Don't have too many of them here. So basically we're finished and we have a stillborn done.